Once upon a time in a quiet village called Maraba, there lived a young man named Gaji. Now, Gaji was different from others in his big family. He was the only boy surrounded by sisters. They loved him dearly, and he loved them too, but little did they know it was just a matter of time before the beast within him would awaken. When Gaji turned 25, his time came. In Maraba, when a boy became a man, he could no longer stay in his parents' house. It was the way things were. So, Gaji packed his few belongings, waved goodbye to his family, and set off to a faraway town. His heart was filled with big dreams, and his feet moved quickly, carrying him far from Maraba. He dreamed of becoming rich, of wearing fine clothes, and of eating his fill every day. As he walked, the road stretched out like a long snake, winding through hills and rivers, leading him to the town that sparkled in his mind like a shiny stone. Gaji was ready to find his fortune, to become the man everyone would be proud of. With each step, he whispered, "I'll come back rich, just you wait." When Gaji finally reached the big town, it was nothing like Maraba. The buildings stretched up high like tall trees, and the roads were busy with people and noise. But for Gaji, things didn't go as smoothly as he had hoped. He tried many jobs, sweeping shops, carrying heavy loads, even shining shoes, but each time, something went wrong. Some days he earned a few coins, just enough to buy a small piece of bread, barely enough to fill his belly. His stomach rumbled like thunder every night, yet he kept going. At night, Gaji had no place to call home. He would lay down wherever he could find a quiet corner, under trees, beside tall buildings, or even under bridges. One day he'd sleep by the market, and the next night he'd be by the river, huddling against the cold. But despite all this, Gaji didn't lose hope. Each morning, he woke up, brushed off the dust, and whispered to himself, "Today will be different." With that, he kept searching, dreaming that somewhere in that big town, his fortune was waiting. One day, as Gaji wandered the streets looking for work, he spotted a big bright poster outside a grand house. The house was the largest he'd ever seen, with walls so high they seemed to touch the clouds. The poster read, "Job openings." Gaji's heart leaped with excitement. Maybe this is it, he thought, his hopes sparking like fire. He didn't wait another second and went straight to the tall iron gate, knocking firmly. After a few moments, the gate creaked open, and a woman appeared, her clothes neat and clean, her face calm. She led Gaji through a garden filled with flowers and trees to a man sitting right in the middle of the compound. This man was Taju, one of the richest men in the whole town. People spoke of him far and wide, not just for his wealth but also for his strange ways. Taju never hired men. Every worker in his house, from the cooks to the guards, was a woman. His driver was a woman, even the gatekeeper was a woman. But Gaji didn't know this. He stood in front of Taju, eyes wide with hope, and said, "Please sir, I need a job." Taju looked at him, shook his head slowly, and replied, "I don't hire men. It's my rule, only women work here." Gaji's heart sank, but he didn't want to walk away empty-handed. He thought quickly and said, "Sir, I have many sisters back in my village. If you don't hire men, maybe I could bring my sisters to work for you." Taju raised an eyebrow, curious. He thought about it, then smiled. "If you bring your sisters," he said, "I will hire them. And for every sister you bring, I will give you half of their salary. You'll make money without lifting a finger." Gaji's face lit up. This was even better than he'd imagined. He could earn money and help his sisters find jobs too. "Yes, sir. I'll bring them," he promised, his voice eager, not even bothering to ask what work they would be doing. As he walked away, Gaji's mind buzzed with plans. "This is it," he thought, his chest swelling with pride. "I'll show everyone in Maraba that I'm truly rich now." With that thought in his heart, he started planning his journey back to the village to fetch his sisters, not caring to ask what kind of work Taju had in store for them. With excitement bubbling inside him, Gaji returned to Maraba, dressed in borrowed fancy clothes, arriving. If you've made it this far, I encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel to continue enjoying fascinating content like this. Your support is very important to us. In a shiny car he'd rented just for the trip, knowing that appearing this way would make the villagers believe all the lies he was concocting. The villagers gathered around, their eyes wide with awe. They could hardly believe the sight of Gaji, looking so grand, like a man who had made it big in the world. Gaji stood tall, flashing a proud smile. "I have great news," he announced, his voice booming with confidence. "I've built a big company in the town. It's a place of high business, and I've come back to give my family a chance to share in the success." His family and neighbors gasped, their faces lighting up with joy and pride as they listened closely. "I want my sisters to come work for me," he continued. "They'll have high positions, jobs where they'll manage others, earn good money, and drive fine cars. They'll become rich, and our family will be respected all around." The villagers looked at each other, nodding with approval. Gaji's parents were beaming, thinking their only son had truly made a name for himself. His sisters felt proud, imagining the bright future ahead. No one doubted Gaji's words. They all believed he was telling the truth. "Don't worry," Gaji said, his voice smooth and sure. "Your daughters will be in safe hands, and they'll bring honor and wealth back to Maraba." Just like that, Gaji had convinced everyone. The village was buzzing with excitement and pride, and his sisters were ready to live with him. They packed their belongings, dreaming of the new lives they'd live in the big town. Gaji, hiding his true plan behind a smile, led them away, confident that no one suspected a thing. Gaji arrived at Taju's grand house with two of his sisters by his side. The sisters looked around, their eyes wide at the towering walls and fine gardens. They thought they were going to a place of work, a place of honor. But Gaji hadn't asked a single question about what jobs they would do. He was only focused on the promise Taju had made to pay him well for each girl he brought. Taju welcomed them with a sly smile. He didn't say much, just nodded and motioned for the girls to follow him inside. Gaji didn't hesitate. As soon as he handed his sisters over, he held out his hand, eager for his payment. Taju gave him a bundle of cash, more money than Gaji had ever held in his life. Gaji's eyes sparkled like stars as he took it, not caring where his sisters went or what they'd be doing. Pocketing his new riches, Gaji set off for the village again, this time coming back with bags of food and money, enough to dazzle anyone who saw him. When he arrived in Maraba, he gathered his family and neighbors around, showing them the money and gifts. "Your daughters are doing well," he said, smiling wide. "They sent this as a sign of their success. Soon, they'll bring even more wealth to our family." His parents and the villagers looked at the gifts with joy and pride, believing every word Gaji said, never questioning where the money or food had come from. And so, with their trust secure, Gaji's plan continued. He had delivered his sisters to Taju, but his thoughts were already on the next trip back, knowing he could bring more girls and make even more money without anyone suspecting the truth. With the success of the first trip, Gaji became like a hero in Maraba. The villagers were so proud, seeing how his sisters were doing so well in the big town. Families began to approach Gaji, eager for their daughters to have the same chance. "Take my daughter with you," they'd say. "Let her work in your company and bring honor to us." Gaji nodded, his mind already on the money he'd make. Soon, he returned to Taju, this time bringing 4 girls, 2 of his own sisters and 2 girls from other families in the village. The girls were excited, hopeful that they'd soon have fancy jobs and a life of comfort. When they arrived at Taju's mansion, Gaji led the girls to the big gates without a single question. He handed them over, barely looking back as Taju's servants led them inside. All Gaji cared about was the weight of the cash Taju slipped into his hands. With each trip, Gaji's pockets grew heavy, and his smile grew wider. He never stopped to think about what kind of work the girls were doing, nor did he ask to see his sisters. Taju was true to his word, paying Gaji each time he delivered more girls. As long as the money flowed, Gaji didn't care to dig any deeper. Back in the village, Gaji became known as the man who brought riches. People looked up to him, and the families were pleased, believing their daughters were in safe hands. Gaji, feeling like a king, only thought about the next journey, dreaming of more money, more riches, and more girls to bring to Taju. As the days turned to weeks and the weeks to months, his ambitions grew, but so did the shadows of his actions, waiting to catch up with him. I hope you enjoyed this amazing trip. Subscribe and don't miss our next video. See you next time.